What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today's video will be the fifth and probably final video in our using Tkinter to build a tic-tac-toe GUI in Python. So if you missed the previous four, we built this tic-tac-toe app where you select whether to play as X's or O's, and then you hit start. And then you can go through and play tic-tac-toe. The computer kind of randomly picks an open space to play against, and then you can reset and play again. But obviously, just looking at it here, the buttons are all weird sizes. This isn't really a board you would ever want to like play in, and it's not very elegant to look at. So this video is really going to be taking a look at dynamically resizing buttons and your different options within Tkinter for button and widget sizing. So without any further ado, we'll dive into it. If you do find this or anything else on the channel useful, I really appreciate a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a ton as we're getting going. And be sure to check out the tons of other videos on the channel and see if any of that stuff gets you interested. So without any further ado, let's get into it. And for this episode, like I said, we're going to take a look at resizing things in Tkinter. And it's a little bit weird if you haven't specifically built GUIs with this software before. You do have to do things to the individual widgets that you want to change the size of, but if you're using the grid method to draw your objects into the screen, you actually also have to modify some settings at the grid level. So that's what we'll start with here. There's really two things. There's grid row configure and there's grid column configure, and you can probably figure out the difference between those two without me telling you. But in here, there's a couple things you have to do. You have to say where you want it to draw on. So all of our widgets are on the root screen. And then you give it what's called an index. So if you're doing row configure, this is what row you'll be looking at. And we're going to start by looking at the actual game square buttons. So down where you select X's or O's and play the game. Those are what we're going to be looking at. So those are in rows 5, 6, and 7. And then the next thing you're giving it is a weight. So this value really just needs to be greater than 0. You're saying like pay attention to it, and then what you put in here relative to others will matter because it's kind of dynamic. But in general, I usually actually just give them all 1 for weight, unless I'm trying to do something really fancy. So we're going to go ahead and assign weight to all of the rows that have the buttons in them, and then we're going to give all 3 columns weight as well here, because those buttons are in all 3 columns of our grid. So you could kind of do this as well with a for loop if you want to. That'd probably be an elegant way of doing it. I'm just doing it kind of quick here, and then we're going to come down to where we draw those buttons onto the screen. Excuse me. And we're going to use something new. This is why we had to assign weight, because when we draw it onto the screen and we use the dot grid, we're going to use something new called sticky. And you can give it cardinal directions, north, east, south, or west. And since this is getting a little bit long, I'm just going to go ahead and make it its own. So this is a little bit easier to read, right? We talked about in earlier videos, when you create a widget, if you're just getting too long like a run online, you can separate out the piece where you dot grid, draw it onto the screen from defining the widget, and that'll kind of clean things up. So we do not need the new line there. And what I just did with this NESW is I said that in all 4 directions, expand to fill the space that you're in. So for column 0, row 5, now that top left button is going to be spanning the maximum available space for it. So if we run that, yeah, you can see all the other buttons just kind of stay their size, but this top left one that we just defined changes size dynamically. So that's pretty cool, but it's not super useful until we do that to all of them. So let's go ahead and take just this same sticky, and we're going to make all of the buttons in this system sticky in all 4 directions. And I am going to leave them all on the same row. You can see like it's just a little easier to look at, the one that I separate into 2. but since I showed it once, I'm going to go ahead and leave them all on here because it's faster for the video. But I would probably recommend going through and doing a dot grid for all of those in the future. And then the other thing is when we draw the new buttons onto the screen, those also have to be sticky because we are overwriting, we're basically replacing a button that was there before, and so when the computer or the player takes a turn, we need that sticky as well in all directions. So let's go ahead and take a look there. Yeah, so you can see this is better, and when we expand it, the buttons fill the screen, which is nice. So we're going in the right direction, but you can tell we got to do something with this top section, right? Because the first column's just wider because of all the labels. So the next thing we're going to take a look at is different from sticky and setting grid conditions. This is going to be using the column span function, and you can use this on any widget, just like that sticky. But what you want to do is in the grid area, let's go ahead and find that first label where it says welcome to Tic-Tac-Toe. So we draw that onto the screen down here, and instead of doing a sticky condition, we're going to do column span, and we're going to make it span all 3 columns. And what you'll see as soon as we run this is now it's directly in the center, because even though it's in the top left, technically it's in row 0, column 0, we told it column span of 3. So if you've used Excel, it's like using merge to kind of join all of these columns together and center it. So we're going to do that for all the labels that are supposed to take up the whole screen. So then the one where we tell the player select a character to play as, and for the buttons that are in row 2 here, we're actually going to make those sticky, and we'll only do east-west for those. Because we don't care so much that they're filling the space north and south. But you can see this is in now row 2, so we do have to go back up where we defined the weights, and we have to add row 2 to our grid weighting. So let's go ahead and do that. And I know I'm covering a lot, and I know I'm going kind of fast, so if you have any questions about anything you see in this video today, be sure to let me know about in the comments. I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. But for now, I'm also going to go through and make any label that is supposed to take up the entire bottom or the entire width of the screen. I'm going to make them all column span 3. So let's see, those are the winners. There's you have selected. We can make that one column span 3 as well. We can make the start button. Those are all that are on at that time. There we go. And let's see, anything else we should widen? Let's go ahead and run it and just take a look here. So right away, that X and O, I don't love that O. I don't love that O in the middle with a space to the right. So I'm actually going to move my O button into column 2. Just a little bit of symmetry. I think it looks a little bit better like that. Okay, so you can see it's actually all centered pretty nicely, and it all resizes really well. So it all kind of sticks where you'd want it to stick. And then we hit start, and we finally get like a decent looking game board. I think because we made this label a column span 3 now, we should actually move it, the winning labels, we should move them back to column 0. But where do we write those? That's in check game over, I think. Yeah, so when we say the winner, because we have it spanning across the whole screen, let's draw that in column 0. And just one more thing, I noticed it doesn't clear out when we draw the board initially. So I'm going to go ahead into that draw board function. Yep. And just down at the bottom, I'm going to create a label that's just totally blanked out. And so when we do reset and play a new game, it's going to cover up the whoever won. So here we go. Let's see if we can get the computer to win. Here we go. O wins. Let's start again. Let's change to play as O now. And let's try to get them to win again. X wins. Nice. And you can just see right quick, like it's a rapidly replayable game. It finally looks pretty good. It resizes really well. Might do another video that's just purely aesthetic upgrades, like changing the text and bold and changing font sizes and background colors and foreground colors. But I'm not sure if I'm going to do that or not. If that's something you'd like to see, be sure to let me know about in the comments below. And if I get some interest for it, I'll make another one on this. Otherwise, I'll probably move on to another series. Hopefully you found this introduction to Tkinter and TicTacToe in Python. Hope you found it all useful. If you have any recommendations for how I can improve the channel or anything you'd like to see in the future, be sure to let me know about it in the comments. And if you did like this, I really appreciate a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel, helps me out a ton. And as always, thanks for watching and good luck with your projects. Thanks. Bye.